This is the 7th topic of your chapter, which is what is inside our eyes. Students, we are able to look at the objects not just because of light, but because we have a sense organ present inside our body, that is our eye. Right? We have eyes. It is a wonderful sense organ. We are able to look at the beautiful world because of this sense organ only. We have different colors of eyes as well. Eyes are very beautiful. So students, there is a reason that only eye is the sense organ through which we can see. We cannot see through our skin, we cannot see through our nose, we cannot see through our mouth. So our eyes have something that makes it possible for us to look at the surroundings, right? Eyes are very sensitive as well. We will be studying about that also. We basically have to take a lot of care of our eyes. So let us start, students. How are we able to look at the world? Let us start. Now, eye has a roughly spherical shape. This is the diagram of the human eye. You can see that it is roughly spherical, right? The outer coat of the eye is white. This outer coat, this is the outer coat. As you can see, this is the outer coat. This is basically white, right? It is tough so that it can protect the interior of the eye from accidents. You have sometimes, you must have noticed that your eye is very sensitive. Even if a dust particle enters, you feel a lot of irritation. So eyes are very, very sensitive. And the inner part of the eye is even more sensitive. So to protect that inner system from the outside world, there is a white covering that is somewhat tough to protect the inside articles, right? Its transparent front part is called cornea. This is the transparent front part, the outside part, that is called cornea, through which the light enters. Behind the cornea, we find a dark muscular structure called iris. This, as you can see, this black structure is iris. Dark muscular structure is iris. So now you have an idea through which area the light enters and what are, let us see what else is present inside our eye. In the iris, there is a small opening called pupil. There is a small opening called pupil. This is the iris, right? And this small opening is known as, this is basically, this whole area is iris. And there is a small opening that is known as pupil. We know cornea is transparent, then cornea has a black muscular structure known iris, and there is a small hole, there is a small opening inside iris that is called pupil. The size of pupil is controlled by the iris. The size of pupil is controlled by the iris. Basically, pupil is an opening, so it tells us that light basically enters through pupil. Obviously, cornea is transparent, so light is getting a gateway, but what is the main entrance? The main entrance is pupil, through which opening the light enters is known as pupil, and its size is adjusted by iris. Basically, iris is a muscle which controls the size of pupil, right? Now, you must have seen that when you are in a dark room, you have to notice that when you are in dark room, your pupil, the size of your pupil increases. Because in a dark room, the light is not present sufficiently. So to absorb as much as light as the eye can, the size of pupil enhances and hence more of the light can enter. Basically this, if this is the pupil and only this is the opening, right? Then only this much light can enter. But if in a dark room, our pupil, the opening basically is enhanced, the size of the opening increases. So this much is the area through which light can enter. So obviously, in a dark room, the pupil's size increases, and when we are present in a bright sunlight, then the size of pupil decreases because the light is already very sufficient and it enters in sufficient amount into our eye. So the size of pupil is smaller, right? The iris is that part of the eye which gives it distinctive color. We have seen blue eyes, green eyes, brown eyes, black eyes. That is because of the color of iris. Iris is responsible for the color of our eyes. When we say that a person has green eyes, we refer to the color of iris. If a person is said to have green eyes, then the color of the iris of his eye is green. That is why we refer the color, that is how we refer the color. We are basically referring the color of iris. The iris controls the amount of light entering into the eye. As I told you that in the iris there is a small opening called pupil. The size of pupil is controlled by iris. Hence, the iris controls the amount of light entering into the eye. So, it is the function of iris to determine how much amount of light is required by the eye, and depending on that, it changes the size of pupil accordingly, right? Now, this is a small activity which is torch activity. You can see another labeling present in the diagram as well. You do not have to know all of this. You will be learning about retina, about optic nerve in the coming lecture, but the rest of the human eye will be told to you in the coming years in the higher education, right? Now, students, this is a torch activity. What you have to do basically is you have to call your friend. Basically do this very carefully. Don't do this in a careless manner. Do it very carefully. You call your friend, and what you have to notice is you have to firstly look at the eye without switching on the torch. Now, without pointing any torch, the size of the pupil is this. It is enlarged because it is a dark room. Not dark, at least it does not have sunlight. So, in a room, the size of the pupil remains this much. This is the size of the pupil, right? This is the color of iris, as you can see, brown color. This is iris and this is pupil. This is the opening through which the light enters. Now, when you switch on the torch in front of the eye of your friend, the size of pupil decreases. Size of pupil is smaller because there is ample ambient lighting, right? There is a good amount of light present, so the pupil's size decreases, and hence we can say that when there is a good amount of light present, the size of pupil is smaller. But when there is little ambient light, dark conditions, then the size of pupil is increased, and this is done by what? This is done by iris. So, this by this activity we can learn how the size of our pupil depends upon the light present around us. Right, students? This was a very fun activity, very simple. Now, behind the pupil of the eye is a lens which is thicker in the center. Now, let us go to the diagram again. There is a lens, crystalline lens, which is thicker at the center. Thicker at the center. Now, students, you have to recall what kind of a lens is thicker at the center. Just remember, and basically you have studied a bit of it in class 7th. There are two kinds of lenses, concave and convex. Concave is somewhat like this and convex is somewhat like this, right? So, you have to decide that what kind of a lens is this. Now, students, the lens focuses the light on the back of the eye on a layer called retina. Now, let us see. This is the lens. Now, when the light comes through the pupil, the role of this lens is to focus the light on the layer present at the back of the eye, which is known as retina. It is kind of a screen. The light entering now is thrown to the back of the lens. This is the back of the eye. This is the lens basically, and this filters the light. It basically makes it focus on the retina, and then what happens is the retina contains several nerve cells. Retina is made up of nerve cells, right? Now, sensations felt by the nerve cells are then transmitted to the brain through optic nerve. Now, what happens is this retina sends signals to the optic nerve, through which the signal is sent to the brain, and hence this is how we are able to see. The retina converts these images into signals, and these signals are then sent to brain, and then brain again processes these signals into images, right? So, basically what happens is the complete procedure. There is your eye, there is an outer covering which is white, then there is a part of that outer covering which is transparent, which is known as cornea. Now, behind cornea is a muscular system, that is iris, which determines the color of eye as well. Then there is an opening in the iris which is known as pupil, through which the light enters. The size of pupil is altered by the iris only, depending upon the light present around us. Now, when the light enters, that light falls onto the lens present inside our eyes, which is the lens is thicker at the center. Now, this light is thrown directly to the back of the eye, which is retina, to the back side of the eye. This is kind of a screen, you can say, where the image is formed, This image is then converted into signals by the nerve cells. Then these nerve cells send signal to the optic nerve, which ultimately sends the signal to the brain. Then brain also decodes the signals and forms images into our mind, right? So this is how the human eye functions. This is the complete function of our human eye.
Now, subscribe to Bright Duty course at ₹1 per day only. Download Bright Duty app from Play Store and get the online courses prepared by competent and experienced teachers for different education boards of classes 6 to 10. Bright Duty courses are available for the subjects of Math, Science, Social Science, English and Hindi in English and Hindi medium. Bright Duty follows 3-step approach, that is learning, assessment and exam preparation. In learning, topic-wise video lectures with explanation of concepts and discussion of textbook examples and questions are available with the solutions. In assessment, topic-wise online MCQ test, practice assignments and chapter-wise question bank are available with the solutions. In exam preparation, previous year's question papers, sample papers and model test papers are available with the solutions. Sign up today on Bright Tutor and avail your courses at affordable prices.